The wind moved slowly across the open ranch, carrying dust and the warm smell of cattle. Morning sunlight touched the long fields of dry grass, turning them into a gold-colored blanket spread across the land. Jake, the cowboy who owned the ranch, walked with his usual steady steps toward the barn. He was a tall man with strong shoulders and a face shaped by years of working under the sun. He spoke little, but when he did, people listened. He was known for being fair, but he was also strict. He believed in hard work, discipline, and honesty more than anything else. That morning, he was thinking about the long list of chores waiting for him. The winter season was coming soon, and there was still so much to do. Firewood had to be cut and stacked. The fences needed repairs. The barns needed cleaning. It was going to be a long week, and he knew he could not do it all alone. When he reached the barn, he stopped in surprise. Someone was sweeping the floor. A young woman, in a simple faded dress and an old apron tied tightly around her waist, moved the broom back and forth with sharp, determined strokes. Her long hair was tied in a loose braid, and though dust clung to her clothes, she kept working without pause. Jake cleared his throat. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes were bright, too bright for someone who seemed so tired. "I'm Maria," she said softly. Jake frowned. "New maid?" "I didn't hire anyone." Maria held out a small note. "Miss June said you needed help. She sent me." Miss June was Jake's older sister, a woman who always believed he pushed himself too hard. She visited the ranch often, and it was exactly like her to send help without asking him first. Jake sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, if she sent you, then I guess you're here. But this ranch is not an easy place." "I didn't come for easy," Maria replied. Jake watched her sweep for a moment. Her hands were small, and the broom looked heavier in them than it should have. Yet she moved it like she had something to prove. He walked away without another word, but something about her stayed in his mind. By midday, Jake found Maria again, this time struggling with a bucket of water. The bucket was nearly full and almost too heavy for her to lift. But she didn't stop. She took a deep breath, bent her knees, and tried again. The water sloshed over the side and soaked her shoes, but she didn't complain. Jake approached her. "You don't have to carry a full bucket," he said. "Take half next time. It's lighter." Maria wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. "If I take only half, I will need 2 trips instead of 1. That wastes time." Jake raised an eyebrow. Most people who worked on the ranch argued about doing less work, not more. This girl was different. "Time is not the only thing that matters," he said. "You'll hurt your back." Maria shook her head. "My back is fine, sir." Jake wasn't convinced, but he didn't push the matter. He had seen many workers come and go. Most stayed only a few days, once they realized how hard ranch work truly was. Maybe Maria would be the same. Maybe she would leave once she understood how demanding the job was. Still, he couldn't help but notice her determination. She worked in silence, focused, never complaining. Every movement she made seemed to come from a deep place inside her, a place shaped by struggle and necessity. Later that afternoon, when the sun hung low and the shadows grew longer, Jake went to stack firewood near the shed. It was heavy work that required strong arms. Logs had to be lifted, carried across the yard, and placed neatly into tall piles that would dry for winter. He had only just begun when he heard hurried footsteps approaching. "Let me help," Maria said, breathing hard as she reached him. "You?" Jake looked her up and down. "You can't lift these logs." "You? You?" She didn't answer. Instead, she bent down and tried lifting a piece of firewood. It took all her strength, and Jake could see her arms shaking. But she didn't drop it. Bit by bit, she raised it against her chest and carried it to the stack. Jake blinked in surprise. You're going to hurt yourself. Maria quickly returned for another log. No, sir. I can do it. He crossed his arms. There are other chores for you. Cleaning, cooking things that don't require this much strength. I don't want easy chores, she said, her breathing heavy but her eyes full of stubborn fire. I need the hard ones. I work better when things are difficult. Jake stared at her for a long moment. Why are you pushing yourself like this? He asked quietly. Maria paused. Her hands rested on the next log, but she didn't pick it up. Her voice softened when she finally spoke. Because people only keep me around when I'm useful, she whispered. If I work hard, no one asks me to leave. Jake felt something shift inside him. Her words, simple yet honest, sounded like they carried more pain than she was willing to show. He realized then that she wasn't trying to prove something to him. She was trying to prove something to herself. He stepped closer. Maria, nobody here is going to throw you out. She looked at him, unsure whether to believe him. I'm not afraid of hard work, she said. Use me for whatever job you need. I'm strong. I like it that way. Jake understood her meaning. She wasn't asking for kindness. She was asking for a chance to work, to stay, to build something stable. All right, he said softly, but we do things safely here. No lifting logs heavier than you are. Maria nodded, but Jake knew she would still push her limits. As the sun began to set, the sky turned orange and purple. The air grew cooler, and the first hint of evening settled over the ranch. Jake finished stacking the last pieces of wood and wiped dust from his hands. Behind him, he heard a tired sigh. Maria stood beside the firewood stack, leaning against it for support. Her face was red from the long day, her hair messy, her clothes dusty. But she was smiling a small, proud smile. You worked too hard today, Jake said gently. She shook her head. I just worked enough. Her legs seemed weak, and she nearly slipped. Jake stepped forward quickly, placing a steadying hand near her shoulder, not touching her, just making sure she wouldn't fall. You need rest, he said. Maria looked up at him with tired but shining eyes. Thank you for letting me work. Jake felt something tighten in his chest. Not sympathy, respect. This girl had more strength in her than half the ranch workers he had hired before, and he had a feeling her story was far more complicated than she let on. The next morning began with a pale gray sky stretching across the ranch. A soft chill hung in the air, hinting that colder days were coming soon. Jake stepped out of his cabin early, as he always did, and walked toward the barn with long, confident strides. His boots made steady sounds on the dirt path, and his breath formed a thin cloud in the cool morning air. He expected to be the first one awake. He usually was. But today, he saw a small figure inside the barn. The dim light from the open door revealed Maria sweeping again. The broom moved back and forth in slow, tired motions. Her shoulders drooped, and her back was slightly bent. It was clear she had not rested enough. Jake frowned. Maria, did you sleep at all? She jumped a little at the sound of his voice, then straightened herself. Yes, sir. A little. I wanted to finish cleaning this area before you came. Jake stepped closer. You worked the whole day yesterday. You shouldn't start before sunrise. Quote. Maria looked down at her hands. Her fingers were red and swollen. She tried hiding them behind the broom handle, but Jake had already noticed. You're hurting, he said firmly. Maria quickly shook her head. I'm fine. It's just new work. My hands need time to get used to it. Jake knew better. He had seen new workers before farmhands, ranch helpers, cooks, cleaners. Some lasted a week, others a month. But Maria was different. She was trying to carry the entire ranch on her back even though no one asked her to. He walked to the tool shelf and took out a clean cloth. Come here, he said. Maria hesitated. Sir, I still have work. Come here, Jake repeated, his voice calm but firm. Slowly, she stepped forward. He wrapped the cloth gently around her hand, being careful not to press too hard. As he did, he noticed faint scars on her wrists. Old ones, not from the ranch. They looked like marks from years of difficult living. She quickly pulled her hand away, but not in fear, more like someone who wasn't used to kindness. I don't need help, she whispered. Jake sighed. Maria, everyone needs help. That doesn't make you weak. She shook her head stubbornly. If I depend on people, they leave. It's better if I stay useful. Those words made Jake pause. They carried a sadness deeper than anything she had told him. He didn't know her past, but he could feel it pressing behind every sentence she spoke. Maria, no one is going to leave you just because you rest, he said softly. Maria turned away, as if she didn't want him to see her expression. I just need to work. Please let me. Jake knew pushing her too much would only make her close off. All right, he said. But I'm giving you lighter tasks today. You're not lifting anything heavy. Maria opened her mouth to protest, but Jake gave her a look that left no room for argument. She nodded quietly. They began the morning chores together. Jake fed the horses, brushed the coats of the calmer ones, and checked the stalls. Maria swept, carried small baskets of hay, and wiped dust off the wooden railings. She moved slowly but didn't complain once. Later, Jake found her rearranging tools on a shelf, standing on her toes to reach the higher ones. You're going to fall, he said as he approached. I won't, Maria said, stretching her hand up just a little further. Jake placed a hand on the tool she was reaching for, stopping it from slipping. Let me do that. She looked at him, then at the tool, then back at him. For a moment, her stiff posture softened. Thank you, she whispered. Jake nodded. That's better. Asking for help is allowed. You know. Maria didn't answer. But her eyes stayed on Jake's hand for a second longer than necessary, as if she was trying to understand the simple act of someone supporting her. As the day went on, Jake noticed something interesting. Whenever she worked beside him, she moved steadier. Her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing was slower. She wasn't as tense. It was only when she worked alone that she rushed and pushed herself too hard. It made Jake wonder. Was she afraid of silence? Or afraid of being left alone? After lunch, Jake walked outside to chop more firewood. He expected Maria to stay in the kitchen, but within minutes, she appeared beside him again. You shouldn't carry heavy wood today, he reminded her. I'm not carrying, she said quickly. I'm just gathering the smaller pieces. Without waiting for his response, she knelt down and began collecting fallen branches that lay scattered across the ground. She placed them neatly into a basket, then carried it toward the stack. The branches were small, but the basket was full. Jake watched closely, ready to step in if needed. Halfway to the stack, Maria stopped. She put the basket down and pressed her hand against her lower back. Her face tightened in pain. Jake was next to her in seconds. You're not okay. Maria shook her head stubbornly. It's nothing. I just need a moment. Forcing yourself won't help, he said. She looked down at the dirt. I told you, if I don't work hard, I might lose my place here. Jake felt a mix of frustration and concern. Maria, no one is sending you away. You don't know that, she answered quietly. Jake crouched down in front of her. Look at me. She hesitated, then slowly lifted her eyes. You're not here because we need a maid, Jake said. You're here because my sister thought you deserved a chance. And she was right. You're hardworking. You're honest. You care. That's enough. Maria's eyes softened, but fear still lingered behind them. People have said things like that before, she murmured. But when I slowed down, they changed their minds. Jake shook his head. That won't happen here. Maria looked away, breathing shakily. I want to believe you. Jake stood and offered her his hand, not to pull her up quickly, but to help her rise gently, at her pace. After a brief pause, she placed her hand in his. He helped her stand, steady and safe. "You don't have to prove anything," Jake said. Maria looked at him with a mix of relief and guilt. "I'm sorry if I'm causing trouble." "You're not," Jake answered. "You just need to learn the rhythm of the ranch. Hard work is good, but smart work is better." Maria let out a small, tired laugh. "I don't know how to work smart yet." "You will," Jake said. "I'll teach you." Her eyes widened slightly, surprised. "You will teach me?" Jake nodded. "Yes." She looked at him with quiet gratitude. "No one has ever taught me anything before. They just told me what to do." "Well," Jake said calmly, "things are different here." For the rest of the afternoon, Jake showed her how to stack wood without hurting her back, how to lift from her legs instead of her shoulders, and how to pace herself so she didn't burn out. Maria listened carefully, repeating every movement until she got it right. Whenever she looked uncertain, Jake simply said, "You're doing fine." Each time, she straightened a little more. By sunset, she looked exhausted but peaceful, like someone who had worked hard but safely, and had finally allowed herself to breathe. When she placed the last small log on the stack, she turned to Jake. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Jake smiled, a rare expression on his face. "Maria, you're stronger than you think. Just stop fighting yourself." Maria lowered her eyes, but the corners of her lips curved upward. "I'll try," she said softly. And for the first time, Jake felt that she truly meant it. The next few days passed quietly, and for the first time since she arrived, Maria began to feel a small sense of belonging. The ranch still felt huge, the work was still tiring, and the mornings were still cold. But something inside her had changed. She no longer rushed blindly through her chores. She no longer worked as if every second decided her future. Jake's calm guidance was slowly teaching her how to breathe again. On the fourth morning, the sky was bright blue, without a single cloud. The sun rose early, warming the ranch with a soft golden light. Birds flew low across the fields, calling to each other. Everything looked calm and peaceful. Jake walked out of his cabin carrying a cup of warm tea. As he headed toward the barn, he spotted Maria feeding the chickens. She was crouched beside the small wooden coop, scattering corn in neat lines. The chickens clucked happily, chasing the food. Maria watched them with a gentle smile. Jake noticed something else. She moved more naturally now. Her back wasn't as stiff. Her hands didn't tremble. And she wasn't forcing herself the way she used to. "You're early again," Jake said. Maria looked up, smiling softly. "The chickens woke me up." "They do that," Jake replied with a faint smile of his own. Maria stood and brushed dust from her apron. "I like mornings here," she said. "They feel peaceful." Jake nodded. "Peaceful is good. You deserve some of that." Maria looked down, shyly tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Compliments still felt unfamiliar to her. Jake finished his tea and placed the cup on the fence. "Ready for today's tasks?" Maria nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir." Jake chuckled. "Don't call me sir. Just Jake." Maria hesitated. "I'm not used to calling people by their names." "Well, you can start now." She nodded again. "Okay." They began their day by checking the horses. Maria had grown fond of them. She spoke to them in soft tones, and even the nervous ones calmed when she gently touched their necks. "You're good with animals," Jake said as he watched. Maria smiled. "They don't judge. They just listen." They. "That's true," Jake replied. One of the younger horses, a brown one with a white patch on its nose, leaned its head toward Maria. She laughed softly and stroked it. Jake watched with curiosity. She seemed more open around animals, almost as if they helped her feel safe. After caring for the horses, Jake led her to the storage shed near the north fence. "We'll fix this today," he told her. "The boards are loose, and the roof needs support." Maria studied the shed carefully. "It looks heavy work." "It is, but we'll do it together. I'll handle the heavier parts. You'll help hold the boards." She nodded, determined as always. Jake handed her a pair of gloves. "Wear these. Your hands need protection." Maria slipped them on, then looked at him. "Thank you." They spent the next hour repairing the lower boards. Maria held the planks steady, while Jake hammered them into place. She watched him closely, learning every movement, trying to understand the rhythm of the work. Jake noticed her interest. "You want to try hammering?" he asked. Her eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes. It's not as hard as it looks." Maria hesitated. "I might mess it up." Jake shook his head. "That's how you learn." After a moment, Maria took the hammer. She lifted it slowly and aimed it at the nail Jake had placed. Her first try missed the nail by an inch. She gasped softly. "It's fine," Jake said calmly. "Try again." She raised the hammer again, this time hitting the nail lightly. It moved a little, into the wood. Maria's face lit up with a small, proud smile. "You did it," Jake said. She hit the nail again until it sank fully into the board. When she pulled back, she looked at Jake with excited eyes. "I did it," she said. Jake nodded. "Told you." Maria laughed softly, and the sound was light and warm. It was the first time Jake had heard her laugh, without holding back. The rest of the morning passed smoothly. They worked side by side, talking more than usual. Maria asked about the ranch, how long Jake had owned it, how many animals lived there, how he managed so much work alone. Jake answered her questions patiently. In return, Maria shared small pieces of her past. Not the painful parts, but tiny, simple moments. She told him about the town she grew up in, the old bakery where she used to buy bread, and the little kitten she once rescued when she was young. Jake listened quietly. He knew she was revealing only a little, but even that was progress. Around noon, they took a break under a large oak tree. Jake handed Maria a sandwich and a bottle of water. "You worked well today," he said. Maria bit the sandwich carefully, as if savoring every flavor. "Thank you for teaching me." Jake looked at her. "Maria, you don't have to thank me every time." She paused. "I do. People don't usually teach me things. They just tell me to finish the work." Jake leaned back against the tree. "Well, you're not just a worker here." Maria studied him for a moment. "Then what am I?" Jake looked at her with steady eyes. "Someone who deserves respect, and patience, and a chance to learn." Maria blinked, taken aback by his words. Her hands tightened around the water bottle. "No one ever said that to me before," she whispered. Jake could see how deeply his words affected her. He wished he knew what she had gone through, but he didn't want to press her. She would speak when she was ready. After lunch, they continued fixing the shed. The sun grew warmer, and the sound of hammering echoed across the ranch. Maria became more confident with each new task. She held tools with steady hands now. She asked questions without fear. She moved with purpose, not panic. At one point, Jake climbed onto the roof to secure the loose boards. Maria stayed below, handing him nails and tools when he needed them. "You're doing great," Jake said from above. Maria looked down at her gloved hands. "I didn't know I could learn so much." "You can learn anything," Jake replied. She considered his words quietly, as if she was trying to let them sink in. By late afternoon, the shed looked almost new. Maria stepped back and admired their work. "It looks strong now," she said proudly. "It is," Jake replied. "Just like you." Maria slowly turned toward him. Her eyes softened, and for a moment, she didn't hide her emotions. "I'm trying to be strong," she said. "But some days, it's hard." Jake nodded. "Everyone feels like that. Strength isn't about never struggling. It's about not giving up. And you haven't." Maria lowered her gaze, touched by his words. Jake rested a hand lightly on the top of the fence near her, not touching her, just offering support through his presence. "You're doing better every day," he said. "I see it." Maria looked up again, and this time, there was a quiet confidence in her eyes. "I feel different," she admitted. "Maybe because someone finally believes I can do things." Jake smiled. "Well, I do." For a long moment, they stood there in comfortable silence, the warm afternoon sun shining over them. It felt like a new chapter was beginning. Slowly, gently, without fear. Maria breathed in deeply. "I want to keep learning, Jake. And I'll keep teaching," he said. She smiled, one full of hope. The ranch no longer felt like a place she needed to survive. It felt like a place she could grow. And Jake knew she wasn't just an employee anymore. She was becoming part of the ranch, part of the routine, part of the peace, and maybe part of something even more meaningful. The sun rose slowly the next morning, spreading soft light across the ranch. The air was cool, and a thin layer of dew covered the grass. Birds were already awake, singing from the trees. It was the kind of morning that made everything feel calm and new. Maria stepped out of her small room, stretching her arms. She felt sore from the work they had done the day before, but it was a good kind of soreness. It reminded her that she was learning, growing stronger, and earning her place with honesty. She smiled to herself as she walked toward the barn. Jake was already there, repairing a broken gate hinge. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning, Jake," she replied, still getting used to saying his name. Jake noticed the small smile she tried to hide. "You look rested today." "I slept well," she said. "I think the work helps me sleep." He nodded. "Work can do that." Maria stepped closer. "What should I help with today?" "We have a busy day ahead," Jake said. "There are supplies coming in, fences to check, and the east field needs cleaning." Maria listened carefully, ready for anything. Jake added, "But I want you to pace yourself. We'll work together. No rushing." Maria nodded. "I'll try." They started with the fences. The path to the east field was long and lined with tall grass. The sky was bright blue, and the breeze carried the smell of wildflowers. Maria walked beside Jake, feeling strangely comfortable in the silence that stretched between them. "You've changed a lot," Jake said, as they reached the first fence post. Maria looked at him with surprise. "Changed?" "Yes. You don't look scared anymore." She paused, then looked at the ground. "I was never scared of the work," she said slowly. "I was scared of losing a place to stay." Jake leaned on the fence and studied her face. "You don't have to worry about that here." Maria gave a small nod, though she looked uncertain. "I'm trying to believe that." Jake didn't push her. He understood. Trust was something that grew slowly, like a plant needing sunlight and care. They began checking the fence together. Jake hammered loose nails while Maria held the boards. Sometimes, he explained how certain tools worked. Sometimes, she asked quiet questions. Their teamwork had grown steady, like two people who had worked together for months instead of days. At one point, Maria stepped into a small hole hidden under the grass and lost her balance. She gasped and reached for support. And Jake quickly placed his hand near her elbow, not grabbing, just helping her steady herself. "Careful," he said. She balanced herself and stepped back. "I'm fine. Thank you." Jake nodded and stepped back too, giving her space. Maria noticed the thoughtful way he moved, firm but gentle, protective but respectful. It made her feel safe in a way she had not felt for a long time. When they finished with the fences, the supply wagon arrived. A friendly older man named Mr. Hawkins waved at them as he pulled up his horses. "Morning, Jake," he called. "Got your winter supplies here." Jake greeted him, then turned to Maria. "We'll unload these together." Maria nodded, rolling up her sleeves. The wagon was filled with sacks of grain, boxes of tools, and bundles of rope. Maria carried the lighter items while Jake handled the heavy ones. Mr. Hawkins watched Maria for a moment, then smiled kindly. "You must be the new helper," he said. Maria nodded, a little shy. "Well, you're doing a fine job," he said warmly. "This ranch needed a bright soul." Maria blushed slightly at the compliment. Jake noticed, but he didn't tease her. He simply smiled and continued unloading the supplies. When the wagon left, Maria brushed dust from her dress. "That was a lot of things." "We'll sort them later," Jake said. "Let's take a small break." They sat under the same oak tree where they had eaten lunch the day before. The shade felt cool, and the ground was soft. Maria took a deep breath, enjoying the quiet moment. "Jake," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" He turned to her. "Sure." "Why do you help me so much?" she asked. "You could just let me work however I want. But you keep teaching me. You keep watching out for me." Jake thought for a moment. His voice was calm when he answered, "Because I see someone who works with her whole heart. Someone who wants to do better. Someone who never gives up." Maria looked at him with wide, curious eyes. "And," Jake added, "because nobody should have to fight alone." Her throat tightened a little at his words. She looked down at her hands, trying to hide the emotion on her face. "Sometimes," she whispered, "I feel like I'm still learning how to live in the world." Jake rested his back against the tree. "Everyone is learning," he said. Maria gave him a small smile. After their break, they headed toward the east field. The place was covered with fallen branches and scattered weeds. The wind had been strong a few nights earlier, leaving the area messy. Maria got to work quickly, gathering small branches and placing them into a pile. Jake watched her for a moment. "You don't have to rush," he reminded her. "I'm not rushing," she said calmly. "I just want to finish this part." Her movements were more confident now. She didn't wobble, didn't panic, didn't push herself to the edge. She was learning to work steadily, the way Jake had taught her. As they cleaned, Maria found a small injured bird hiding near a bush. Its wing looked bent, and it chirped weakly. "Oh no." Jake walked over. "What is it?" Maria showed him the tiny bird. "He's hurt." Jake crouched beside her. "We can carry it to the barn. I keep a small box for injured animals." Maria looked relieved. "Thank you." Together, they gently placed the bird into Jake's hat and carried it to the barn. Maria set it into the box, lined with soft cloth. The bird chirped quietly, then rested. Maria smiled gently. "I'll look after him." Jake nodded. "You have a kind heart." She blinked in surprise. "Do I?" "Yes," he said simply. They spent the rest of the day doing small tasks around the ranch. Repairing the chicken coop, sorting tools, gathering fallen leaves near the porch. Maria felt her confidence growing with each passing hour. She felt useful not because she was trying to earn a spot, but because she was truly helping. When evening came, the sun painted the sky with orange and pink tones. The ranch glowed in the soft light, and the air turned cool again. Maria stood at the firewood stack, wiping sweat from her forehead. Jake approached, quietly. "You did well today," he said. Maria looked at him, her face tired but bright. Jake nodded. "You are strong." She hesitated before speaking again. "Jake, do you think people can change? I mean, really change?" He looked at her thoughtfully. "I think people grow," he said. They learn new things. They find new strength. They become better with time. Maria breathed in slowly. Then maybe. You are, Jake said. I can see it. Maria smiled, a warm, honest smile. Thank you for believing in me. Jake nodded. It's not something I'm forcing myself to do. It's something you earned. Ah. The sky darkened, stars appearing one by one. Maria felt a quiet happiness rising inside her, something gentle, something peaceful, something she had almost forgotten she could feel. She looked at the ranch, the animals, the fields, the fences, the firewood. For the first time, she felt not like a guest, but like someone who finally belonged. The next morning arrived with gentle sunlight spreading across the ranch. The air was cool, but not too cold, and the sky was clear. It felt like a fresh start, as if the whole world had been cleaned overnight. Maria woke up early, stretching her arms slowly. She had dreamed of the ranch of the animals, the fields, the quiet peace she was slowly learning to enjoy. She felt calmer than she had in many years. She stepped outside and inhaled the crisp air. The ranch smelled of morning mist, fresh hay, and warm earth. As she made her way toward the barn, she saw Jake standing near the fence, checking the horses. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. "Morning, Maria," he said with a small smile. "Good morning," she replied, returning the smile. Jake studied her face for a moment. "You look different today. Peaceful." Maria lowered her eyes shyly. "Maybe I'm finally feeling safe." Jake's expression softened. "I'm glad." They walked together toward the barn, where the small injured bird from the day before was resting in the wooden box. Maria knelt beside it and gently touched the corner of the box. "Is he okay?" she asked. Jake leaned closer. "Look," he said, pointing. The bird fluttered its wings, still weak, but better than before. Maria's face brightened. "He's healing." "You helped him," Jake said. Maria smiled softly. "He needed someone." Jake looked at her carefully. "Just like you did." Maria's breath caught a little, but she didn't look away. Instead, she gently nodded. "Yes, I think you're right." For a moment, they stood in quiet understanding, both feeling the truth of his words. After checking the animal feed and water, Jake turned to her. "Today is a special day," he said. Maria blinked. "Why?" "I want to show you something." He motioned for her to follow him. They walked across the ranch, past the barns, past the fields, and toward a small hidden path lined with bushes. The path wound gently between tall trees until it opened into a beautiful open space. A meadow filled with wildflowers. Maria stopped and gasped quietly. "This is beautiful." Jake smiled. "I come here when life gets heavy." Maria stepped forward, the flowers brushing her dress as she walked. The meadow felt alive, glowing in sunlight. She looked around with wonder in her eyes. "It feels like a secret place," she said softly. "It is," Jake replied. Maria turned to him, touched. "Why show me this?" "Because you've earned it," Jake said. "Because you deserve to see beauty, not just hard work." Maria felt a warm feeling inside her chest, something gentle, something unfamiliar, something safe. She took a deep breath of the fresh air and closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she smiled widely. "I love it here," she whispered. Jake watched her quietly. "I thought you would." They spent time walking through the meadow. Maria picked a small flower and held it like a treasure. Jake told her stories about when he was younger, how he used to come here with his sister, how the ranch had changed over the years. Maria listened carefully, her heart warming with each new detail. After a while, Maria said, "Jake, I want to tell you something." He looked at her with calm patience. "Take your time." Maria hesitated, then took a slow breath. "Before I came here, life was hard. Very hard. I had no place to stay, no one to trust, no one to help me. I worked everywhere I could, but people only kept me until they found someone stronger or faster. Her voice trembled, but she kept speaking. I thought this place would be the same. Well, I thought this place would be the same. Jake shook his head gently. It isn't. No, Maria said, her voice soft but steady. It's not. You didn't send me away. You didn't shout when I made mistakes. You taught me. You believed in me. Jake stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she felt supported. Maria swallowed a small lump in her throat. I didn't know that before. You know it now, Jake said gently. Maria looked up at him. Yes, I think I do. They walked back to the ranch as the afternoon sun warmed the land. Maria felt lighter than she had in years. She noticed things she never paid attention to before, the way the wind moved through the grass, the soft sounds of the animals, the clear blue of the sky. Everything felt new and meaningful. When they reached the barn, Jake handed her a small wooden box. Here, he said. Open it. Maria carefully lifted the lid. Inside was a pair of new work gloves. Soft, sturdy, and perfectly her size. Oh, she whispered in surprise. These are for me? Jake nodded. You've been working with old ones. I thought you deserve better. Maria traced the gloves with her fingers. They felt warm, almost like comfort. Thank you, she said softly. I know you will, Jake said. As the day continued, they worked side by side, as they always did, but today felt different. Maria laughed more. Jake talked more. The work felt easier, and the silence felt comfortable. Later, as the sun began to set, they stood outside watching the sky turn shades of gold and orange. The ranch glowed under the fading light. Peaceful and wide. Maria looked around and said, I never thought I would find a place like this. Jake folded his arms. A place? Maria shook her head gently. No, a home. Jake looked at her, surprised but deeply moved. Is that what this feels like to you? Maria nodded slowly. Yes, I feel like I finally belong somewhere. Jake's voice softened. Maria, you do belong here. Maria, you do belong here. Her eyes grew warm, almost emotional. Thank you. For everything. For helping me. For teaching me. For seeing good in me when I couldn't see it myself. Jake took a slow breath. And thank you. For bringing life back to this ranch. For working with honesty. For trying every day. The wind blew softly, brushing past them. The sky darkened, stars appearing one by one. Maria looked up at the sky, then back at Jake. I'm not scared anymore. That's good, Jake said. Maria stepped toward the firewood stack, running her hand gently over the smooth pieces of wood. She remembered her first day, how unsure, how tired, how desperate she had been. And now, she felt steady, strong, hopeful. She turned toward Jake, her voice steady. I want to stay here, Jake, not just as a worker, but as someone who helps, learns, and grows. Someone who is part of this place. Jake's face softened into a warm, grateful expression. Then stay, he said. This ranch is better with you here. Maria smiled a full, bright smile that held months of emotions, struggles, and quiet victories. The night sky spread above them like a peaceful blanket. The ranch was quiet, the animals settled, and the world felt calm. Maria stood beside Jake, no longer unsure, no longer afraid. She had found her place. She had found her worth. She had found a home, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly happy.